This is the story of one of the world's greatest singers, whose life is as remarkable as his voice.
I think he's a solar voice, a great musician by instinct, and he's at the top of all, a great guy, and I like him very much. I consider him my younger brother, and I think he's the last of the great tenor living in this day.
I'm not at all afraid or to say that I'm a romantic man.
Granada, Manora, cantada, en copias preciosa. No tengo otra cosa que darte que un ramo de rosas de suave fragancia que le diera Marco a la Virgen morena. Granada, tu tierra está llena de lindas mujeres, de sangre, de sol.
4 years ago, José Carreras was on his deathbed, ravaged by leukemia. His struggle back to health and the stage was motivated mostly by an overwhelming need to perform.
These 3 hours there, you are untouchable. And finally you realize, not only as an artist, but as a man as well.
De rosas de suave fragancia que le diera Marco a la Virgen morena. Granada, tu tierra está llena de lindas mujeres, de sangre, de
His whole life has been a tale of victory against the odds. The story begins in a movie house in Barcelona in 1953.
But remember, I do not swallow the insults.
I was 6 years old, and we went to see the great Caruso. And I have been, from the moment that this man appeared in the screen, I was absolutely fascinated by his personality and his voice and all the story, you know. And then I start the day after singing at home the songs or the arias, particularly the La Donna Immobile from Rigoletto, the way I heard it in the movie. I know it sounds odd, but I always wanted since that day to become a singer. And my parents, and particularly my mother, she thought that, well, then I have a kind of intuition for the music, so why not send this boy to a music teacher.
I em vaig posar a tocar na, 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 na. I ell es va posar a cantar.
The boy's mother asked me to play La Donna Mobile on the piano, and then he started to
Em vaig
sing.
mullar la falda.
When I heard him,
I em vaig emocionar
it was so
tant,
emotional
sentia
that I
aquell
cried
nen que
until
cantava,
my dress became
que em
wet
vaig
with
mullar
tears.
el vestit.
And we went to a recording studio in Barcelona, very rudimentary recording studio at that time. I was 7 years old. And I sang a very popular Catalan song, and then La Donna Mobile, of course. And I remember that La Donna Mobile, I did not sing the high B, because already then I had a lot of troubles with my top notes. And I sang it the way it is written by Verdi. I mean, the cadenza just going down, which is, I think, very musical.
By bizarre good fortune, an opera producer looking to cast a boy soprano 3 years later remembered this broadcast. He brought the young Carreras to the Grand Liceo Opera House to play the role of the boy narrator in Manuel de Falla's opera, Master Peter's Puppet Show. For the young boy, it was like a dream come true.
I didn't have to teach him anything. He listened to the record and then copied it perfectly. All I did was tell him where to breathe and where not to breathe. That was all.
In most productions, an adult soprano sings off stage while the boy mimes. But here was an 11-year-old with a voice good enough to act and sing at a great opera house. It wasn't as if he had a musical or privileged background. His father was a policeman, his mother a hairdresser, and he lived in a blue-collar suburb of Barcelona, taking less interest in music than in the rough and tumble of a normal boy's upbringing.
En José era molt eixerit, molt tremendo.
When he was young, he was very naughty. He was close friends with my son, and they used to throw pegs out of the window as passers-by below. But all the same, the neighbors where I lived knew the day he would come for class, and used to hang out of their windows and balconies so that they could listen to him.
I know you are going to laugh, but I was a very good basketball player, and basketball was my sport. I was a playmaker, of course. And, for many, many years, for about 12 years, I played basketball. I played also some football.
Bueno, que ens agradava molt el futbol, i anàvem molt al futbol.
We were both Barcelona Football Club fans. There's a special name for us here, for the Barcelona supporters. We're all called culé.
Football has remained an abiding passion for Carreras, who went on to become a director of the very successful Barcelona Football Club. On occasions, he still finds time to appear in charity matches. In Salzburg in 1989, he played in a celebrity game alongside the other Spanish tenor, Placido Domingo. It was his mutual love of the game which was later to lead to the Three Tenors concert.
Catarina Catarì, e che me dice ste parole amare, perché mi parli a cuore, ma dormiente Catarì, non te scurda, che t'ha gettato cuore Catarì, non te scurda. Catarì, Catarì, che bene a dicere, stu parla che a me da spasamento, e non c'è piazza sto dolore mio, tu non c'è pienza tu, e non te ne cura.
The person who fostered his youthful love of music was his mother. But when he was still young, she tragically contracted cancer.
She was the most energetic and tough woman if needed, and the sweetest and tender at the same time. I don't know, I'm afraid I lost her when I was too young. I was only 18 years old. She was 50 years old. And well, probably she was in a very high percentage responsible for me that I'm an opera singer. And you can be sure, and I don't want this all to be sentimental, but every time I go on stage, before to going into stage, I have a very quick thought for her.
Until he was 17 years old, Carreras learned music at the Municipal Conservatory along with his normal schooling. During this time, he became increasingly sure in his own mind that he wanted to be a singer, whether or not his family would agree.
I think the commendable thing about the boy is that he became fascinated in music, and he really did learn it properly. I mean, and he went to the conservatorium and he played the piano, and he even has pointed out that he did his counterpoint and attempt at harmony and composing. And that foundation is essential if a singer is really going to be a very good one.
When I was 18, 19 actually, I went to the university and I did 2 courses of chemistry, because my brother and my brother-in-law, they started a small company of cosmetics, and that we thought, well, maybe if his singing and his career does not take place, at least he will be, you know, these kind of things that family advise you to do. And I did it, but then the moment to decide or to go on with my vocation and my singing and my music, or to go on with chemistry arrived, and I made that decision, and I have to say, with the support of, entirely support of my family.
All piano.
Carreras worked hard at his music. While at university, he was taught first by the man who had tutored the other famous Catalan tenor, Giacomo Aragal, and next by a dedicated amateur called Juan Ruax. Then, as now, he took rehearsal very seriously.
Mescetemi il vino, tu solo bicchiero tra gaudi terreni, non sei menzognero, vita dai sensi, dolcezza del cor.
He has always favored the bel canto songs, which are best suited to the lyrical nature of his voice, by composers like Bellini and Verdi.
Mescetemi il vino, tu solo bicchiero fra la dia papia la be papia la be papira pa pam pam pampira da triatti do da. Amai m'infiammano due sguardi fatali, credei l'amicizia fanciulla senz'ali, follia dei primi anni, fantasma illusor, mescetemi il vino, dolcezza del cor. Ok?
Ritardando. Mi ha tolfato.
Follia dei primi anni, fantasma illusor, mescetemi il vino, dolcezza del cor. L'amico, l'amante con il tempo ne fugge, e tu non ne paventi chi tutto distrugge, l'età non t'offende, t'accresce virtù. Sfiorito l'aprile, cadute le rose, tu sei che d'allegri le cure noiose, sei tu che ne trovi la gioia che fu, l'età non t'offende, t'accresce virtù. Chi meglio risana del cor le ferite, meglio risana del cor le ferite, se tu non ci desse la tua vita sarebbe immortal l'umano cor. Mescetemi il vino.
Barcelona is a wealthy city with a rich cultural tradition and a history of producing world-class tenors, from the 18th century down to today. Barcelona was also the home of the singer who some regarded as the world's finest soprano, Montserrat Caballé. She heard the young Carreras and cast him, fresh out of university, alongside her in his official debut at the Liceo.
You can imagine what it is for a young singer. I was 23 years old. When somebody asks you if you want to do a role like Gennaro in Lucrezia Borgia, which is a beautiful role for a young tenor, with Montserrat Caballé, and there start a real relation.
To me it was like a little brother, like a child. It looks so young and it looks so decided, but at the same time it looks shy, and all that impression. I was feeling very, very tender for him.
In the first act, Gennaro fell asleep, and she comes out, Lucrezia, and she sings this beautiful Come bello quell'incanto. I'm sorry, Montserrat. And I remember being so nervous, almost shaking in the first night, and hearing this voice singing the way she sang that, and feeling already calmed down after hearing her singing. You're 23 years old, you're singing with the #1 soprano in the world, in your debut, in your town, in your city, in the opera house where you have seen for the first time an opera that have so many sentimental links with. So you can imagine how one feels.
His success at the Liceo led in 1972 to an invitation from the New York City Opera. He had recently married, but left his wife at home while he traveled to further his career, a pattern which was to repeat itself over many years. He debuted in Tosca as Cavaradossi, a role which remains a favorite of his. After New York, his career took off. Within less than a year, he debuted in major roles in many of the world's leading opera houses, La Scala, Vienna, Munich, and Covent Garden in La Traviata in 1974, playing the male lead, Alfredo, in front of an illustrious audience.
So I was able to be at the performance, and I was immediately really very, very, very touched by the beauty of the voice and the sincerity and of the phrasing, and really the refreshing sound, you know, that a tenor was bringing into the music.
Anybody who makes his debut at the Royal Opera House is a very important date, in not only his career but in his life. But something turned out at the end rather funny, but something that could have been rather tragic. And that was that in the second act, in the big aria, Alfredo's aria, I was singing Dei miei bollenti spiriti un papapapira, and I see the general administrator of the Royal Opera House walking on stage, Sir John Tooley. And I thought, my goodness, I'm not singing that bad. Something must be wrong. And no, it happened that there was a bomb alarm. And he kindly asked the audience to go out of the house and to wait for the police to check and so on. But, you know, I heard, oh, we should better walk slowly to the exit, and maybe we can finish our drink in the Crush Bar before. And, you know, that was, for me, it was very, very, very surprising, because I never thought that somebody can react in such a civilized way.
Carreras had now arrived on the international scene. Over the next 10 years, he was to travel constantly, consolidating his career. His lyric voice and good looks typecast him as the romantic hero of opera. He carved out his niche in these dashing and energetic roles, La Bohème, Don Carlos, Tosca, and became one of the world's most popular singers. But the role he most made his own, and he's now played it over 100 times, was Don José, the jealous lover of Bizet's Carmen.
He's a naive personality, a noble personality at the beginning, a man in love, a man that discover loves, man that has to face a very dramatic situation. At the end, it arrives to his self-destruction, you know, because of these women. This is the role. If you ask me what role you would like to sing from all the operas, which role you would like to sing on stage, that I would say Don José, for sure.
Jose gives the most wonderful, tattered performance of tearing the inside of the character out and really throwing all the internal turmoil of Don Jose and giving it to the